Ross Ulbricht received the maximum sentence Friday for 7 federal charges spanning from narcotics trafficking to computer hacking. Silk Road was an estimated $200 million marketplace where people could buy everything from drugs to weapons. Now a new documentary airing tonight brings us into the shadowy world of the deep web.
Elusive ringleader known as
the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Who is the Dread Pirate Roberts? Authorities say they have their guy.
29-year-old Ross Ulbricht.
Is he the man they call DPR?
Plenty of evidence suggests that he was involved in the Silk Road. They seized his laptop while he was logged in.
But I interviewed the Dread Pirate Roberts. The first thing he told me was that there are multiple Dread Pirate Roberts.
There was more than one person?
At least 2 other people, if not 3.
Well, joining me now is Alex Winter, the writer, director, and producer of Deep Web. And with a big thanks to you, I'm curious, Alex, about your reaction, first of all, when you heard about the life sentence there for Ross Ulbricht.
Yes. Well, I was in the courtroom when Ross was sentenced. It was it was a very lengthy sentence. It was a very thorough sentence on both sides. The judge made a very long proclamation about why the sentencing was going to be so harsh and what the concerns were about the charges and the severity of the charges, the way that they were looked at. But none of us in the room that had been following this case for the last couple of years were prepared for life in jail without possibility of parole, which is what he was sentenced to. So it isn't really to cast aspersions on the sentence as much as to say it was stunning, and it's certainly a very harsh sentence given the charges. Well,
what's interesting, on the outside, it appeared to be a pretty cut and dry case. At least that's how it was presented. The young mastermind, he creates this underground website for all sorts of nefarious business. You've got drugs, guns, fake IDs, whatever you want. It's a cartel that just happens to be online. But your film presents a much more complicated picture. So what is your take?
Well, my take would, I mean, you could watch the movie to
right.
Take would take a while, because the reality of it is what you're dealing with is an anonymous and private community on the internet that's been growing for decades. And the markets like the Silk Road that have grown out of that community, and again, this community is of all types of people. It's not sort of run by one person, or it's mostly people who are really invested in privacy and anonymity in the digital age. Now, there's a lot of good that happens there, journalists and government agents and dissidents and people who really rely on privacy, average citizens who really want privacy and protection in the digital age. There's also criminality there as well. So there are a lot of facets to this case, and this case raised an enormous amount of questions involving how the government deals with crime in the digital age, how the Constitution protects the average citizen from warrantless search and seizures. There are so many complicated issues at play in this case that go beyond the surface.
But how exactly did the Silk Road work?
Well, the Silk Road was part of the internet called the Darknet, which is a fairly small corner of the internet that is only accessible through specific types of applications. One of them is Tor, the onion router, which was actually developed by the U.S. government. So again, these are not tools created by criminals for criminal purposes. They can be used for those purposes. But the Silk Road operated within that corner of the internet, so you needed a special application to get to the Silk Road. You couldn't type in silkroad.com and get there. It required it's not difficult to get into this space, but it did require know-how to get into this space. And then the kicker with the Silk Road, the reason it really took off, was it combined that anonymity technology with Bitcoin, which is a digital currency which is capable of being anonymized. It's not on its own strength anonymous. It's actually extremely trackable. But it's capable of being anonymized. So once you combine Bitcoin with the Darknet, they were off to the races.
So Ulbricht's motivation was what, money?
Politics, it seems. The community behind the Silk Road, which I was very much embedded in and was dealing directly with the core architects of the Silk Road, whether you agree with their politics or not, because they're very radical, were really trying to use technology to change drug policy. They were staunch opponents of the drug war. They felt the drug war was a huge problem, that people were going to do drugs anyway, and they needed to be able to get safer access to drugs and safer access to better drugs. There is no doubt that's incredibly radical. I personally look at the Silk Road less like an engine for just base greed and criminality, and I sort of equate them more to the Weather Underground and other radical groups from even the late 60s and early 70s that were using extreme means to change the way things worked and to circumvent government policy that they didn't agree with.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see the documentary, but before I let you go, you're going to have to forgive me this, but I do want to point out for the viewers who might recognize you from your acting work that the narrator of the film is Keanu Reeves, with whom you starred in the Bill and Ted series of films.
We did.
What brought you two together again?
Well, we've been, really close friends for many, many years, decades at this scary point in time. And Keanu's always had a very big interest in technology and in sort of underground technologies as well. And he followed this film closely as I was cutting it. So it seemed like something worth doing in the end when we got to doing voiceover.
All right. Well, it makes a lot of sense. And thank you so much for the interview. I wish you best of luck with this. It's Deep Web, everyone. It premieres tonight on ePix at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tune in. Definitely Appointment TV there. Thanks.